criminal,
offender,
criminal record with DV,
menace to society,
burden,
an addict, failure,
manipulator,
prisoner, victim,
unlovable,
unable to rehabilitate,
unworthy,
weak,
formerly incarcerated,
damaged,
convict,
felon,
defendant,
liar,
statistic,
earth, sea,
unemployable,
water,
criminal.
Well, Corey, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time, and I'm just so excited to dive right in to your personal story.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here today. My name's Corey Walster, and I'm community organizer for the Civil Survival Project, and I'm formerly incarcerated. Became addicted to methamphetamines by the age of 16, and by the age of 25, I'd been through the prison system twice. Upon reentry, I had hoped that anybody that was in a position of power over me had forgotten. I spent about 13 years in, for lack of a better term, hiding. New people that I met or people in a position of power over me, I hoped that they had either forgotten that I was formerly incarcerated or didn't have any biases around people with that label of felon. And that's the problem with this label of felon that's put on us, and these other dehumanizing labels like offender and felon and criminal, and words that are used to other us. They really make us not try at times or cause us to hide. And I often ask people when I'm tabling at events and things, do you know anybody that's formerly incarcerated? And I often hear no, and that shocks me. And I tell the people that shocks me because there's a couple numbers that get thrown around. One is 1 in 3 and one is 1 in 4 people have some sort of conviction history. And so that means that 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 people that has been convicted of some sort of crime. But because these othering labels are used on us that are used to dehumanize and prevent us from access to opportunity, we hide and we don't tell people.
What you have just explained and what I find so fascinating about your story is really the roller coaster from 16-year-old Corey being addicted to methamphetamines, struggling with the weight of an addiction, ending up incarcerated. And then it's really this, it's maybe cliche, but it's a redemption story, right? You have come out of hiding and you are advocating for people who you understand, whose plight you have lived. And I wonder what it's like for you to stand in the position that you are now and look backwards to incarcerated Corey and how he must have felt. What does it feel like to reflect on that time from where you are now?
It's a lot of mixed feelings. First of all, none of this is comfortable for me. All of this is outside of my comfort level and my wheelhouse. I didn't go to school to be a criminal justice advocate. I was just a normal everyday person that was experiencing barriers and has experienced barriers since 2005 and before, actually. And so, yeah, I guess it'd be uncomfortable would be the first feeling. And the second feeling would be empowerment. Taking control of my story and controlling the narrative of my story is extremely powerful, and showing others that they can do the same and that we don't have to be the sum of what society says we are. And, I mentioned that I had hid for so long, and I quickly realized I was doing a disservice to myself and people like me. And this is the only time I'll refer to myself as a felon, but this is the face of a felon. And, we're your next door neighbors. And, 95% of the people in prisons will be our neighbors again. they were once our neighbors, they will be our neighbors again, and we need to invest in healing our community rather than making people more traumatized by adding trauma on top of trauma and not providing any services for our community members that are many times in the darkest moments of their life.
Corey, what really strikes me about hearing your story is that it's just so relatable. All of those ups and downs, the personal self-doubt, the feeling the need to hide because we are losing belief in ourselves. I mean, that is the human story. That's all of us. And I feel like we are, frankly, we would be fools not to feel like that could have been us if life circumstances were different, because it's not just one thing that happens to a human. It's a series of things, and it's like one slip off the path and you're headed in the wrong direction. You know, it's so relatable, and it's so important for all of us, as you said, to start humanizing people who have been formerly incarcerated, because we are all humans together, because it could have been us. I think that helps me, I know, frame it in a much different way. I think maybe than I was raised to frame looking at people who have been incarcerated, is that it could have been me. It could have been my friend. It could be my neighbor. It could be my loved one. And that many of those circumstances are beyond someone's control. We all make mistakes. We all make really stupid decisions sometimes, and the consequences of those look different for people. So I don't know, I guess the overwhelming feeling I'm left with is, who are we to judge, and why aren't we jumping in to help?
Exactly. And if it isn't or couldn't be you, it could very easily be your child, your aunt, your brother, your cousin, your niece or nephew. You know, in these tough on crime law years of the early 2000s and before, you know, we lost sight on that. And, you know, the laws have really been about burying us. And it's really caused us to be, I think we were considered a throwaway community, a throwaway population. And as much as we say that we want people to go to prison, learn their lesson, and come out and be part of the community, historically, that just hasn't been the case.
Sure. Could you talk to me a little bit about that from a personal aspect of what is it like to go through this experience, wrestle with your addiction, wrestle with time while being incarcerated, and the entire internal journey that must have been, and then to be released and come back and have to reassimilate, not just in society, but also in your personal life?
Yeah. And, you know, part of the addiction for me was also money. You know, I sold a lot of methamphetamines to support my habit. It was something that I'm not proud of, but I was naturally good at it. And I was able to make a lot of money doing it. So, you know, I had to that last time I was sitting in that cell up in Clallam Bay, close custody, I had to really, in my mind, I had decided that I was done, that I wanted things in life. You know, I joked that I got clean for selfish reasons, you know, because I was tired of losing everything I had every time something happened. And, you know, when I was sitting in that cell, part of that kind of turning the corner was, I thought that I had to give up any chance of having money in my life. I thought I had to resort to a life of poverty because of the 48,000 collateral consequences that come with that conviction. And upon reentry in your community, you are, for instance, I was behind on child support. And, you know, while I was incarcerated, I felt that whether I could pay the money or not, I felt I owed my child child support, and so I left it set as if I was working a minimum wage job. So when I got out of prison, I owed a considerable amount of money, and so my check was being garnished while I was paying off current child support. Then I also, at the time, we had legal financial obligations that came with a 12% interest rate from the time of incarceration.
And I want to clarify that. That means you have this financial obligation that comes with your sentencing, I assume. And then there is, and I want to repeat what you just said, a 12.5% interest on that fine, which you are being charged while you are incarcerated and can't make money.
Yes, 12%, not 12.5.
Oh, sorry.
But it's still very high. Kitsap County, all counties are kind of separate. And so Kitsap County was one of the worst as far as giving non-mandatory fines to people. And, so you could have, say, $2,500 in fines per case. So say you have 4 cases that you've had. And so that's, a considerable amount of money growing at 12% interest rate. Say you get 10 years. That's 12% interest for 10 years that's been growing. And, when I got out and I called the clerk's office to set up my payment plan, as I said, I had my check being garnished. I was paying current child support. I was paying rent and food and, things that my child needed. And so I called and I set my payments at, I believe it was $30 or $35 a month. And that was on just 3 cases. And the clerk, when I talked to her on the phone, she said, well, that's not even going to cover the interest, right? And I said, yeah, I'm aware of that, but, I have to eat, and that's a really great example of, it would have been a whole lot easier to go back to selling drugs and pay off these fines and, not have anybody pressuring me for all this stuff. But,
sure. So you've given up your way to make a higher income. You have been incarcerated, so now your job options are limited, I assume, and you're digging yourself out of this financial hole that would, bring anyone in the general public to their knees. And yet you've got all these extra weights on top of your head. And I don't want to discount, I feel like viewers will watch this and say, but there's this debt to society. Sure. Fine, a mistake is made and the debt needs to be paid, whatever that is officially decided to be. But these repercussions, like you said, these 48,000 barriers that keep coming and keep coming and keep coming, I feel like they've been, maybe for the general public, sliding under the radar of just how much we are forcing people who have been formally incarcerated into a hole that they cannot dig out of and become successful, contributing human beings to society. How is one supposed to succeed truly? If this person is incarcerated, they're super sorry. They have this moment where they wake up while in prison and they just can't wait to go do all the good things on the planet, and they come out with all of these barriers. It doesn't matter how motivated and amazing and hopeful you feel, you still have to navigate a million hurdles to start becoming a productive member.
It reminds me of a Mike Tyson quote: everybody has a plan until they get hit in the face. And I may be misquoting that.
Yeah, yes.
It's very relatable. Coming out of prison, you're filled with all this hope to make change and, be a good father and be a productive member of society. And then, on your way out, they're like, good luck, don't come back, and then you get hit in the face.
Yeah, literally.
And
I think that's such a great point and a great transition for us to talk just a little bit briefly about what you're doing at Civil Survival and how Civil Survival is helping those who have been formerly incarcerated.
yeah, so we do a few things. We you can probably see from my T-shirt, but our kind of catchphrase or motto is educate, motivate, liberate. The educate portion is our workshops. Pre-COVID, we would do full day workshops where in the morning we talk about the history of organizing and the power of our collective voices. And then we talk about remedies and to barriers to employment. And we practice talking about our personal stories around one or more of the 48,000 collateral consequences, or in other words, barriers that we face, and how those affect ourselves, our children, and our families. And because these barriers, they don't just affect us. It's not just preventing me from doing things. It prevents my children from me, say, volunteering in their school. You know, when they were in school, I wasn't able to volunteer, and you know, and I'm not the only parent that experiences that, and so the children lack a parent to be full participating participants in their education. Meanwhile, the schools, they're screaming for parents to be involved. You know, and then so in the afternoon at the workshops, we have elected officials come in, and those elected officials, they hear the personal stories that people have and their experiences. And for many of us, it's the first time that a person in a position of power has listened to us in an authentic way and offered us feedback on how to tell our stories in a more effective way to elected officials that are really short on time, and sometimes we don't have a lot of time with them. The motivate portion is our game changer groups. We currently have what we call game changer groups in 4 counties. One is Kitsap, one is Thurston, one is South King County, and then one in Pierce County. And the Kitsap County group was our first group. And our game changer groups, you know, I don't like to compare them to NA or AA because they're not a 12-step program. But not everybody coming out of the prison system identifies as being in recovery. So many times they lack that community support to release to. We are that community because we are directly impacted and formerly incarcerated. It's an opportunity to network and be with people that have similar life experiences and many times have been out of the prison system for lengthy periods of time, and members can offer guidance on how to navigate barriers or you know, things like that. We also share our personal stories in that group. I feel that, you know, sharing my story of hiding and the power of using my voice is really encouraging and uplifting. And it helps people to see that once we stop hiding and we start using our stories and our voices and personalize the labels that they put on us to other us, that we can get movement and we can get relief from some of these barriers. And that brings me to the Liberate portion. You know, we work to remove barriers and change laws. And we do that by telling our stories. We do that by every January we go up to Olympia and we advocate for ourselves around different bills. In I believe it was 2017, you know, there have been people doing this work for decades. We're not new to this. We didn't start this work. This work's been going on to relieve some of these barriers. But I really feel like once we started using our personal stories and our personal voices, in addition to others and allies advocating for us, that we really started getting more traction. In 2017, we were able to change the legal financial obligation laws. It removed among other things, it removed the 12% interest rate, and it removed non-mandatory fines. So that gets all the courts on the same page. But unfortunately, it wasn't retroactive. So we started doing what we call LFO days. And the first one was here in Kitsap County because of the relationships that we've built with the judges and the prosecutors and the clerks. And here in Kitsap County, we were able to help 500 people. They saw around 450 misdemeanor cases and 550 felony cases. And what they did was they removed any of the non-mandatory fines that we were given historically for the people that were in attendance. And they removed the interest. And I personally received $15,000 in relief that day. Wow. I owed more in interest than I was ever sentenced. And there were others that received $80,000 in relief. And that's, again, I'll say it again, that was just the non-mandatory fines and the interest removed. And so we also did one in Pierce County with really great results, and we were hoping to do more, but COVID happened. And so we're looking at creative ways to continue that work. In 2018, we worked on the New Hope Act with Drew Hansen, and what that bill did was it fixed a lot of vacating laws. Previously, our time to vacate our records didn't start until we paid off our fines. Well, we couldn't pay off our fines because they had such an exorbitant interest rate. And that law really helped a lot of us and made it to where we could vacate our records. But under the current system, and with the communities that are the most impacted by the criminalization laws, we also have the least amount of access to resources for legal help. And it requires either you petition the courts on your own, or hire an attorney to do that. Well, unfortunately, most of us can't afford that, and the legal system isn't designed for you to easily navigate. So in last year in 2019, we worked on what we called the Clean Slate, or what's called the Clean Slate Act. It's a national effort, but state by state. And for us, the idea was that it would bring the New Hope Act to life by making record vacating an automatic process, so that once we're eligible, it just happens rather than us having to navigate figuring out how to make it happen. But unfortunately, it got to the House really well, but when it got to the Senate, it became a study bill. We were going to end a pilot. We were going to do that pilot here in Kitsap County. But unfortunately, due to the fiscal note of the bill, the governor vetoed it for money to go to COVID things.
Sure. This is just remarkable to me. I think we talk in society at large about how we should work together to reduce recidivism. And that term is sort of nebulous. It like hangs out in the air that like, yeah, that's a thing we should do. And as you said, you guys aren't the first to do it. This has been an effort that's been going on for a long time. But the work that you're doing locally is just phenomenal and so needed. I keep hearing the phrase right now that a human being should not be defined for the rest of their life by their worst day. that shouldn't define everything. We should get the chance to have much better days and to prove to ourselves and others that we get to have better days, that we are capable of so much more, and that there are lessons to be learned there that you guys are sharing by sharing your personal stories. And I just have to commend you for the work you're doing and for the ability to share your story. No matter what someone's story is, that's not an easy task. It's hard to put yourself out there and lay it all bare, or most things bare, and to really talk about the hard stuff. And I just think it's phenomenal, the work that you're putting in to ensure a better path for others.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And, these are, for the most part, people that have been in our prison system or are in our prison system, they've been victims of some sort of trauma in their lives. And many times we talk about, well, what about the victims is the word they throw out. Well, first, victims prefer to be called survivors. And, it's not one or the other. It's the same population. And our current prison system, it's taking traumatized people and putting them through more trauma and expecting them to learn a lesson from more trauma. Our system's punitive, it's not restorative. And, this group of survivors that are in our prison system, they absolutely deserve second chances, and they absolutely deserve the resources needed to be successful. And that's how we're going to heal our communities. That's how we're going to make our communities safer, is by healing people that commit crimes.
I couldn't agree more. I'm so grateful for your time today, Corey. Thank you for sharing your story and the story of civil survival. Thank you for joining me. And those of you watching, feel free to head to their website for more information. Thank you so much.
Mother.
Father.
Criminal.
Small business owner.
Dependable father.
Survivor.
College graduate.
A veteran.
Kind.
Provider.
My name is Sarah.
My name is Bailey.
My name is Tina.
My name is Sarah.
My name is Michael.
My name is Robert.
My name is Andre.